And speaking of fantastic stories, our next guest is blessed and ready for the next meaningful experience. And her experiences are many. A native of Buffalo, she has participated in so many GLBT projects, it's difficult to enumerate. She always enjoys being a participant, and she has participated in a lot. Her father was the head of the NAACP in Buffalo, and she has tried to follow in his footsteps through participation. She holds a PhD degree, and she just retired from 43 years in media. She was one of the originators of a show called All Things Considered. And do you know that All Things Considered has now been abbreviated? Now you have to know it as ACT or ATC. Yeah, because in order to be modern and cool now, you have to abbreviate everything beyond recognition. So if you hear ATC on the radio, it's All Things Considered. She's also a BMI recording artist on the Renaissance Fair circuit, with a couple of CDs to her credit. Please welcome Leza Mesiah.
Oh. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, I've lost my voice a little bit today, and for those of you who know me, know that I'm a second soprano. I'm a second alto today. You get that? Because I tell you. And first of all, I am very honored to be here today because I can see friends that I've worked on boards with, people who I go to camping with twice a year, friends who I watch American Horror Story with, friends who I did Peter Pan with, and of course, friends who we sang with the Women's Chorus of Dallas. You know, I was raised in You know, I was raised in Buffalo, New York, and a lot of friends that I went to school with were actually at Stonewall. And in addition to helping develop All Things Considered and world music, we had gay programs like Dyke in the Streets and Stonewall Nation, and also there is a theme, a hymn that was also written during that time. I was born in Killeen and was one of the kids that helped integrate the hospital in Fort Hood, Texas. And actually, when I came out, the young nurse gave me to a Chinese woman because I hadn't browned up yet. So it always started, you know, so is life. But in Buffalo, it's there. My mother said, she's a girl, she has 6 fingers. And finally the older nurse said, you know, some black babies, they brown up. They come out later, they brown up later. But growing up in Buffalo, New York, both of my parents were very much into the civil rights movement. My mother's name was Leza Mesiah, and she would call when they would want to put on minstrel shows, etc., and we'd get these calls, you Jews are all alike. Because her name was Leza Mesiah, they just assumed. Later, they became outward, and my dad got involved. He's the volunteer, at 87, still the volunteer president of the NAACP in Buffalo, New York. I think he could say lesbian before I could. But also in New York State, I think he's also, having a gay daughter, also made sure that the NAACP had, within their charter, within their mission statement, pro-gay language. So anyway, we also grew up, however, every week we would get bomb threats and everything. So when I came down here, I was over the bomb threats. So I never wanted to really be in front of the cameras, but I was always there. In fact, I'm going to call this speech, I was always there. And I'm also going to be doing a bunch of name dropping, so be prepared. I came here in 1977 with my partner, Susan Eastman, who passed away in 1980. And the first winter I spent in a pool with Vivian and Louise. And we're talking September, you know, we're talking winter. And coming from Buffalo, you have to understand, this is a place where when it snows in the winter, you can't get out your door because the snow is covering the house. So I came down here in 77, and it was then where somehow I got recruited to join the Dallas Gay Alliance through Steve Wilkins. And some of you may know Steve Wilkins because he also recruited Vivian and Louise. I also met during that time Floyd, Don Baker, and Phil Johnson. Mike Englund was around, Dickie Peoples, and Jay Oppenheimer and Mark Schechter gave the best parties. Do remember that then. I also remember sitting around a table talking with Lisa Means and future President C.C. Cox. But under Louise's guidance, I went to our precinct convention in May of 1978, scared, because I was going to introduce a resolution to repeal 2106 of the Texas Penal Code to decriminalize sex between two consenting adults. Now, you have to understand, I had also taken a lot of karate and judo, and I was prepared for a fight. I came from, raised in New York, but thank God we didn't have to. It went very well, and I was there. So we introduced that. I remember that I supported Louise in saying that, but she remembers that I said it probably because I love to talk in front of people. Then we got to later that year, in actually 78, I found myself with Viv and Louise at the Texas Gay Conference 5 to hear Harvey Milk. And the only thing I remember from that is turning to Viv and Louise and going, "Who's Harvey Milk?" And again, I'm 25, what do we know? But I was there. Now, on the other side of town, we have a group called BNPW, Business and Professional Women's Club, where a woman by the name of Lori Hewitt Masters was running the largest BNPW club where Sarah Hughes came out of, but she had all these lesbians floating around her. In fact, I knew Lori before she could say the L word. And through that association, I found myself admiring her. I found myself hanging out with, I guess, the Dykes on Bikes and the Women's Motorcycle Club. And I even remember one year floating down the Brazos River. And in front of it was Kay Wilkinson being the queen. Remember that, Kay? I'm Queen Colette. I'm floating down the river. And then also I admire the fact that during that time, lesbians were not raising children. And I'm sitting there with Lori's daughter, who's 13, 14, just amazed. And I was so, at that time in 1977, 78, lesbians didn't have a whole lot of kids. Now we adopt from all over the world and all. Now, on another side of town, my partner at that time had passed away, and all the women seemed to be fighting with each other. All our male friends were dying, and then there was things like the mastery, where you took a long weekend to decide and discover who you were if you only have a limited time to live. And through that, I found my purpose was to bring joy, and it was really quite fabulous. We had a situation where, again, the guys were dying, the women were fighting, and we had a group of women that created this gay Peter Pan called The Magic of Peter Pan, where Molly Bannon was Peter, and then you've got Debbie Wallace over there, and Sherry Briggs, and I think we're part of the Lost Children, Jill Rittmeyer. Again, Lori was a singing, dancing Indian. Marty Van Cleet was up there. Laura Calloway was there. And I was the singing, dancing crocodile. And it was great. It was absolutely wonderful. Then, in another part of town, getting back to that, why the Magic of Peter Pan was so important, it was the first group with Diane Bird, Diane Pierce, Jane Vanderventer that won the first Extra Mile Award. And that's something that Lori had started, and eventually it was expanded to Legacy. And again, I was there. Another part of town, we had the women's bookstore, Half the Sky in Lower Greenville, where you could have constant entertainment. And that's where I met women like Christine Jaros, Deb Elder, John C. Mundo, Linda Fennell. And there were always 3 black women, me, Ann Brown, Emma Colquitt, and Alpha Thomas. And then there were 3, me, Ann Brown, Emma Colquitt, Alpha Thomas. Then in another part of town, I was on 2 softball leagues, one with Kay Vincent, and the other one was the King's Kids at MCC Church, of which Lupe Valdez was our coach. So I was there. And then later, Deb Elder came along, and thank God I found Carol Ann Boyd for dentistry. And that woman can tell what is your problem just by looking in your mouth. And then she also underwrote a couple of our women's chorus CDs, and that was great. And then, of course, our gay doctor at the time was Carol Lyle and Nurse Vicky, who didn't go to doctor for them. But then there were also the nurses that were taking care of the guys that were that were dying for AIDS, like Sandy Horowitz, Penny Pickle, Mary Franklin, who got me involved with the mastery. And so anyway, and also there was Gay AA, the Lambda, that was also very helpful during that time. And somewhere along the time, there was a guy by the name of Ed Wendt, who I remember looking at the picture of at Black Tie, where if you ever look at the picture at Black Tie, he's the guy who Mike Anglin has his arm around. That man brought me to my very first dinner that is, I guess, was the precursor of the Black Tie dinner and HRC, and it was a group called the Insiders. I went as his date because his date didn't show up, so I was there. And it was like, and we were talking about what our vision was. That was a vision for HRC. That was a vision for the Black Tie dinner. Every revolution, every social movement has music. You know, in the Revolutionary War, it was the fife and the drums. In the Civil War, as Johnny Comes Marching Home Again, the fife and the drums. Civil rights movement, there's the Freedom Singers, Joan Baez. In the women's movement, as I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar. And when the gay movement, it was the choruses that brought a lot of the love together and crossed that boundaries. With the women's chorus, I felt that we were just a bunch of women with kids. We weren't bar people, but we just wanted to sing. And between Cynthia and Tim Seelig, we have sung everywhere for everybody. I mean, we sang for the Queen of England. We sang for Mayor Kirk's inauguration when we had sang We Shall Overcome. Oh my God, I still get chills. And if you were there, you know. We also were with Maya Angelou doing Sing for the Cure. And speaking of Ann Richards, it was so funny because the women of Dallas, we're a bit little lipstick lesbians here. And you had the women of Houston who are still wearing their Birkenstocks, kind of. And it was kind of cold, but underneath our jackets were these beautiful pastels of yellows and blues and greens. And when we took off our jackets, and this palette that Walt Disney had dropped upon the ground, and we're singing these beautiful songs to Anne, even the Houston women went, because we were just that good. And also, and we would go to these gala functions, but we were like the singing voice of our gay movement. We've been to Carnegie Hall several times, and Tim had to remind us, now girls, when you tell people we're going to Carnegie Hall, don't say, oh, we're going to Carnegie Hall again. Because, that was all part of that. Now, I joined also during that time MCC Choir. I was in musicals with Theater Gemini under Cheryl Denson's. I was in plays that Reverend Carol West put on. And also I was one of the original bondholders of this Cathedral of Hope. But in many cases, when I did a lot of this stuff outside of the women's chorus, I had other names. Sometimes I was anonymous. Sometimes I was Lisa Caldwell. Sometimes I was Lisa Hunt. Because I was still a bit in the closet, because at the time, WBAP was who brought me here. I got to thank them for setting me up for retirement. But they weren't the hate radio. They were just good old country music. there. Through the years, I've been on committees with the first gay film festival that really was involved with Susan Melnick. She also did Little Feather. The second gay film festival, which was with Connie White, we did Outtakes. I was one of those judges. Youth First with Felicia Porter, my neighbor. Rebecca Cavell recruited me for Federal Club for the last 16 years. And then there are things that happen that I don't even know. Because I know I've been to George's house. I know I've been to Jack's house. I've been to everybody's house in here, but I don't always remember why. But I was there. So what can I say? I'd like to kind of conclude. The only time I was a Grand Marshal, I wasn't in Dallas, I was in Houston. I was hanging out with Lucia Valeska. I don't even remember why. And I don't remember why I was on a plane with Laurie Masters, probably with Legacy. Found myself in a limousine talking to Rita Mae Brown, who was sharing with me her DAR experiences and her relationship with Martina. Oh my God. So anyway, I guess that's about 15 minutes, I think. Anything else? Oh, okay, another side of town. Board of Directors, I was on the ACLU, Commission of Texas of Natural Resources. I was with the first meetings at Life Walk. Then I owed Wendy Crispin a favor. But that put me on the Board of Directors of 8 Arms for a few years. And I got the company I was working for then, CBS, to underwrite the media for a lot of the Life Walks. And then I got involved with Sierra Club, Inner City Outings, and Gay Menza. So socially, there was a group of us that were Pink Flamingos, and we had these things where we were successful lesbians and gay men, and we wanted to encourage ourselves. But on that committee of this Pink Flamingos included Charlotte Taft, Lee Taft, Deb Elder, me, Kath Casey, Sylvia Demarest, Sarah Moody, Cheryl Berman, Kay Vinson, Deb Elder, Jenny Martin, 2-time Emmy winner, by the way, who also did the When We No Longer Touch at the Turtle Creek Corral. And while we all partied together, I was representing the black upper middle class, I suppose. And the only thing about being one of the few black people, and I got so tired of you people saying, "Oh, you just don't sing black. You just not," and what they were saying was, listen, I feel comfortable with you because I was raised in a multiracial, ethnical environment, and I've never met a stranger. So, and then finally, I'm finally here. I am so grateful to the federal government because I married my partner in about 10 years in San Francisco in 2013. And again, Louise and Viv were our witnesses. And I'm also very, very proud of her because for 30 years she served our country in the public health service, which is like in the Navy. And I have some of the best medical benefits there are. Thank you. And I'm proud of her. And Betty, hi Betty, thank you for coming. And thank you, Carol Ann, for suggesting that she come. So that's about it. Thank you. I was there.